Oh, by the way, these are all books from 2020. I didn't even mention that. This is my book haul for 2020, reading clearly in 2020, because something about 2020 has to be good. All right, I'm just gonna put that in the beginning of the video. Cheers, dark reader friends of mine, darklings, deathlings, I don't have a nickname for you yet, but cheers. You know, this is actually really decent wine. I buy it at a gas station. It's only like $15, maybe it's $10. It's inexpensive, and it's good, and it's got a cute, I was gonna say cover, it's got a cute label, which as we all know is the real measure of a good wine. Ah, yes, you can taste the colors and the fine linen paper. What am I talking about? What is wrong with me? Hello, readlings. Just came up with that on the spot. Caitlin Doty's got her deathlings. Gaga's got her monsters. Readlings? I don't know. Hello, dark reading people. And welcome to a book haul. It has been a very long time since I've done a book haul. That's because I haven't been buying books. I spent so much money on books a couple years ago that my goal was like, why you gotta spend money on books? You got so many books you haven't even touched. Read those books and then buy new books and then we'll talk. There's a man over there. He's arguing with me about why he should be allowed to buy books, and I'm just giving him my advice. That's what that was. And I am enjoying a lovely glass of this Cabernet. All right, so I have a very long for me, very long book haul. So let's dive in. The first books that I'm going to cover are the physical ones. And the first book is not going to be a surprise to anybody. This is Death in Her Hands by Ottessa Moshfegh. If you've paid attention to my channel for a while, you know that I love Ottessa Moshfegh. She writes warts and all characters. They have weird hygiene, honesty, and do questionable things. And her narration is really, really brilliant. She's an amazing voice. One of my favorite books probably of all time was My Year of Rest and Relaxation, which I only gave 4 stars because I thought there was a little bit of a lackadaisical depiction of the consequences of abusing prescription drugs in that book. But that's me being kind of a tightwad, and it was an amazing, gorgeous, beautiful book anyway. So I love her very, 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 very much. I mean, I don't know her. I think she's a great writer. I hope this hasn't been doing that. Boy, that's annoying. I have a ring light, see? So this is Death in Her Hands. This is like another weird Moshfeghian literary take on a mystery or a thriller. While on her daily walk with her dog in a secluded woods, a woman comes across a note, handwritten and carefully pinned to the ground by stones. Her name was Magda. Nobody will ever know who killed her. It wasn't me. Here is her dead body. But there is no dead body. Our narrator, Philip, everything good over there? He's making a burrow. My dog is ruining everything. It's appropriate, though, because this is a Moshfegh book. So I bought it on ebook first, because I pre-ordered it, and then because I wasn't reading, it just sat there on my Kindle, and then I realized I have every other book of hers on hardcover on my shelf, and I need to have this one, too, so I bought that. The Revolution of Marina M. This is super Russian. St. Petersburg, New Year's Eve, 1916. Marina Makarova is a young woman of privilege who aches to break free of the constraints of her genteel life, a life about to be upended by the vast forces of history. Marina will join the marches for workers' rights, fall in love with a radical young poet, and betray everything she holds dear before being betrayed in turn. This is heavy. This book is... Well, the acknowledgements end on page 805. So it's a long one, and I've heard that her writing is beautiful, and I don't have any problem diving into a hugely long book if it's beautifully written. So this could be an entire month of my life. So I don't know that I need to read a blurb about this. This is called How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. He has been all over the place being interviewed talking about this book. It is sort of like a sensation, sort of like white fragility. But I want to read this. This was recently kind of condensed into a simpler, for maybe younger readers version, but I wanted to read the full one. So I found this, I actually bought this in Target. This obviously discusses race in America. Anti-racism is a transformative concept that reorients and re-energizes the conversation about racism, and even more fundamentally, points us toward liberating new ways of thinking about ourselves and each other. From the National Book Award winning author of Stamped from the Beginning. So this is going to be wonderful and eye-opening and probably confronting and awesome. So I'm looking forward to it. The next book that I hauled is a book that I saw in Target, but I actually did not buy it there. I don't remember where I bought it, to be completely honest with you. This is The Exiles by Christina Baker Kline. Christina Baker Kline is the author of A Piece of the World by Christina Baker Kline. This is a historical fiction setting set around the painting of a famous painting, that one right there. This is not about that. I haven't even read that book yet, but I know it's up my alley, and I've wanted to read it for a long time, and I've heard great things about it, and I saw, oh, that's that woman, and she has a new book out, so I just bought it, and I wanted to have it in hardcover to put next to the other one. It says, well, I know what it's about. It's actually about the, do you know that, I can relate this to wine, okay? Do you know the wine 19 Crimes? There were 19 crimes back in the day in Europe that would get you sent to Australia for, like, prison, and that's kind of how the white people moved into Australia. Well, this book is about that. Seduced by her employer's son, naive London governess Evangeline is arrested on a trumped-up charge when her pregnancy is discovered and is sent to the notorious Newgate prison. After months in the fetid, overcrowded jail, she learns she will be exiled to the land beyond the seas, Van Diemen's Land, a penal colony in Australia. There's more written, but it's historical fiction. It's about a topic that I find really interesting, and I'm excited about it. The last physical book that I have in my haul is a book that I've heard a lot of people talk about for a long time, wanted to read and decided because the cover is so pretty to me that I needed to get the original hardcover before it disappeared, and that is What We Did by Christobel Kent. This is a thriller. Bridget has a secret, one she keeps from everyone, even her husband. One that threatens to explode when her childhood music teacher, Carmichael, walks into her dress shop. With him is a young girl on the cusp of adulthood, fresh-faced and pretty. She reminds Bridget of herself at that age, naive and vulnerable. Bridget wants him away from her, away from that girl. When he pushes her too far, she snaps. But what she thought was a decisive act only unravels more insidious threats, more than she could have ever imagined, and from which no one is safe, not even her family. I've heard good things about this book. I love the cover. I love book covers that are simple, that just have like a beautiful photo and like striking text. I like the slantediness of it, which is a word now, and it just is striking looking to me. I wanted to find out more about it, and then I heard that it sounded like a good book, so I bought it and I own it, and I'm gonna read it. So there you go. And we haven't even gotten to the ebooks yet. So we have a bunch of ebooks. Saving April by Sarah A. Denzil. Hannah Abbott is afraid of the world. Plagued by anxiety, she lives an isolated, uneventful life in suburban Yorkshire. She rarely leaves her house, and her only friend is Edith, her elderly neighbor. But when the Mason family moves in across the street, Hannah's quiet life is changed forever. The Masons pull Hannah into their tangled web of secrets. She must decide what to believe and who to trust as she attempts to rescue their teenage daughter, April, from harm. Hannah knows one thing for certain. She can't be afraid anymore. So it sounds kind of vague, and I don't remember why I bought this at all. I don't remember buying. I bought it in May, and I don't remember anything about it that made me buy it, but it sounds fine, so that's a book. A People's Future of the United States, which is a collection of short stories edited by Victor LaValle, the author of The Changeling, and John Joseph Adams, whose name I remember, but I don't know why. For many Americans, imagining a bright future has always been an act of resistance. A People's Future of the United States presents 20 never-before-published stories by a diverse group of writers. These stories imagine their characters fighting everything from government surveillance to corporate cities to climate change disasters to nuclear wars. But fear not, A People's Future also invites readers into visionary futures in which the country is shaped by justice, equity, and joy. This collection features a glittering landscape of moving, visionary stories written from the perspective of people of color, indigenous writers, women, queer and trans people, Muslims, and other people whose lives are often at risk. And I love how that is written. Boom. Yep. The next book I bought was Blackwater Rising by Attica Locke. Blackwater Rising is the first book in a series. I guess it's just called the J. Porter series. And I think this was her debut novel, actually. J. Porter is hardly the lawyer he set out to be. His most promising client is a low-rent call girl, and he runs his fledgling law practice out of a dingy strip mall. But he's long since made peace with his path to the American dream, carefully tucking away his darkest sins, the guns, the FBI file, the trial that nearly destroyed him. Houston, Texas, 1981. It's here that Jay believes he can make a fresh start. That is, until the night he impulsively saves a drowning woman's life and opens a Pandora's box. Her secrets put Jay in danger, ensnaring him in a murder investigation that could cost him his practice, his family, and even his life. So I've heard about Attica Locke, and I know she's not new, so this is the first book in this series, and I'm excited. I hope I love it so that I can read the whole series and get excited about that. People are reading her all over my Goodreads, so Attica Locke. Blanche on the Lam by Barbara Neely. This sounds so fun, so cute, and look at the cover. Nope, that's not her name, Blanche. Blanche White is a plump, feisty, middle-aged African-American housekeeper working for the genteel rich in North Carolina. But when an employer stiffs her and her checks bounce, she goes on the lam, hiding out as a maid for a wealthy family at their summer home. That plan goes awry when there's a murder, and Blanche becomes the prime suspect. So she's forced to use her savvy, her sharp wit, and her old girl network of domestic workers to discover the truth and save her own skin. Along the way, she lays bare the quirks of Southern society with humor, irony, and a biting commentary that makes her one of the most memorable and original characters ever to appear in mystery fiction. So that's a bold claim, but honestly, she sounds delightful, so I'm going to believe it. Okay, this next book is a book that I read the synopsis for, and I said, oh, we're doing this then. Okay, I've heard it's great, so I'm so intrigued. This book is called 40 Acres by Dwayne Alexander Smith. Martin Gray, a smart, talented black lawyer working out of a storefront in Queens, becomes friendly with a group of some of the most powerful, wealthy, and esteemed black men in America. They invite him for a weekend away from it all. No wives, no cell phones, no talk of business. But far from home and cut off from everyone he loves, he discovers a disturbing secret that challenges some of his deepest convictions. Martin finds out that his glittering new friends are part of a secret society dedicated to the preservation of the institution of slavery. But this time around, the black men are called master. Trapped inside a picture-perfect, make-believe world that is home to a frightening reality, Martin must find a way out that will allow him to stay alive without becoming the very thing he hates. What? That's amazing! And apparently it's successfully done and accomplished because the book has really good reviews, so I'm so excited to read this book. And okay, so here's the deal. I love this cover better than this cover. This cover's fine, but I like this cover better. But this cover, I couldn't find a high resolution version of, so I was afraid to use it on screen because it's not going to look good. But anyway, this is the cover I like. But this is the cover that's actually on my ebook, so none of this matters. Okay, next book, moving on. Swordspoint by Ellen Kushner. Now, this is a fantasy book. This is an old book. This is written in 87 or something. This is actually one of my friend's favorite books. On the treacherous streets of Riverside, a man lives and dies by the sword. Even the nobles on the hill turn to duels to settle their disputes. Within this elite, dangerous world, Richard St. Vier is the undisputed master, until a death by the sword is met with outrage instead of awe, and the city discovers that the line between hero and villain can be altered in the blink of an eye. Now, one of the reasons this book came to my attention is that Ellen Kushner wrote this book with a major gay character in this genre that is usually very heteronormative, and she did this a long time ago. And in fact, she was rejected by several publishers because they wanted her to change the gender of this character in order to avoid that before they would publish the book, and she said nope. And it was a turning point in fantasy literature, and it was groundbreaking then, and honestly would be groundbreaking now. I keep doing this with my shoulder, and then I'm like, oh. So I'm super excited to read that book. It sounds genre-defying. Okay, this is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. The year 2000. 15-year-old Vanessa Y. becomes entangled in an affair with Jacob Strain, her magnetic 42-year-old English teacher. 2017. Strain has been accused of sexual abuse by a former student who reaches out to Vanessa, and now Vanessa suddenly finds herself facing an impossible choice. Remain silent, firm in the belief that her teenage self willingly engaged in this relationship, or redefine herself and the events of her past. Is it possible that the man she loved as a teenager may be far different from what she has always believed? Now, there is some controversy surrounding the authorship of this story. Not the book itself, but the story. There's another book with a very similar premise called Excavation, and I'm debating whether or not to read that book because what has happened as a result of these allegations, which were made in an article, is that the woman who wrote this book, Kate Elizabeth Russell, has been forced to come out and tell people that this story is based on personal experiences discussing her sexual trauma and her past in order to defend herself from accusations of plagiarism. And that sucks. Am I interested in possibly reading Excavation? Yes, I am. I haven't bought it yet, though. The next book is Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams, another book that I've had my eye on for a long time and I think was one of the books maybe in my most anticipated reads video. Queenie Jenkins is the 25-year-old Jamaican-British woman living in London, straddling two cultures and slotting neatly into neither. She works at a national newspaper where she's constantly forced to compare herself to her white middle-class peers. After a messy breakup from her long-term white boyfriend, Queenie seeks comfort in all the wrong places, including several hazardous men who do a good job of occupying brain space and a bad job of affirming self-worth. She finds herself wondering, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Who do you want to be? All of the questions today's women must face in a world trying to answer them for her. So this book looked great before, it looks great now, I've heard great things, and I'm really glad that I own it now, and am super excited to dive in and read it. The next book that I hauled was The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. It's a darling of the booktube community right now. I took the bait because it does sound really good. It also sounds quite similar in some ways to Swing Time by Zadie Smith, but I haven't read that book yet, so I can't really say that with much authority. Oh, the Vinyas twin sisters will always be identical. I don't know how to say that. But after growing up together in a small southern black community and running away at age 16, it's not just the shape of their daily lives that is different as adults, it's everything. Their families, their communities, their racial identities. 10 years later, one sister lives with her black daughter in the same southern town she once tried to escape. The other secretly passes for white, and her white husband knows nothing of her past. Still, even separated by so many miles and just as many lies, the fates of the twins remain intertwined. What will happen to the next generation when their own daughter's storylines intersect? All right, this book is exciting. This was just released on the 1st of September. This is called 50 Words for Rain by Asha Lemmie. Kyoto, Japan, 1948. If a woman knows nothing else, she should know how to be silent. Do not question, do not fight, do not resist. Such is 8-year-old Noriko Nori Kamisa's first lesson. She will not question why her mother abandoned her with only these final words. She will not fight her confinement to the attic of her grandparents' imperial estate, and she will not resist the scalding chemical baths she receives daily to lighten her shameful skin. The illegitimate child of a Japanese aristocrat and her African-American GI lover, Nori is an outsider from birth. Though her grandparents take her in, they do so only to conceal her. But when chance brings her legitimate older half-brother, Akira, to the estate that is his inheritance and destiny, Nori finds in him the first person who will allow her to question, and the siblings form an unlikely but powerful bond. I love stories about people who have accepted their supposed inferiority, who have been brainwashed and taken that on and internalized it for a long time, who then have an awakening and decide to start flexing their muscles and coming into their power for the first time. I love the fact that this is set in Japan. And Asha Lemmie, she says that she started writing the book when she was 16 and finished it when she was 22. So it took her 5 years to write, but she started writing it at 16. Amazing. It also happens to have an absolutely beautiful cover that I can't stop looking at. You're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but I totally do, just being honest. Okay, Severance by Ling Ma is not what I thought it was about, and I'm super excited. Candice Chen, a millennial drone self-sequestered in Manhattan office tower, very good, is devoted to routine. So she barely notices when a plague of biblical proportions sweeps New York. Then Shen fever spreads. Families flee, companies halt operations, the subways squeak to a halt. Soon, entirely alone, still unfevered, she photographs the eerie, abandoned city as the anonymous blogger NY Ghost. Enter a group of survivors led by the power-hungry IT tech Bob. They're traveling to a place called the Facility, where Bob promises they will have everything they need to start society anew. But Candice is carrying a secret she knows Bob will exploit. Should she escape from her rescuers? Weird ending to that blurb. Maybe I didn't copy the whole thing. So it's about a apocalyptic pandemic And I heard murmurs of zombie, maybe, from someone else who read this. And yes. When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. Now, I own is it a short story? It's not a short story. I think a novella by Alyssa Cole that I bought for my totally and completely unsuccessful Read Harder Reading Challenge in 2018. That was a male interracial historical romance set between opposing soldiers at a battle during the Civil War, which I haven't read yet. And I wish that I have. But anyway, Alyssa Cole is very popular. Sydney Green is Brooklyn born and raised, but her beloved neighborhood seems to change every time she blinks. Condos are sprouting like weeds, for sale signs are popping up overnight, and the neighbors she's known all her life are disappearing. To hold on to her community's past and present, Sydney channels her frustration into a walking tour and finds an unlikely and unwanted assistant in one of the new arrivals on the block, her neighbor Theo. But Sydney and Theo's deep dive into history quickly becomes a dizzying descent into paranoia and fear. Their neighbors may not have moved to the suburbs after all, and the push to revitalize the community may be more deadly than advertised. So that's awesome. This is like a displacement mystery story tied into gentrification and race and a thriller and a mystery, and that's awesome. So cheers to all of those books that I've purchased in 2020. I just spit on you. So those are all of the books that I have purchased in the year 2020. Most of those books I bought in the last 2 weeks. And I'm not going to get all of them read anytime soon, but I am going to prioritize them because one of my goals for my channel now is to prioritize the works of artists of color and Black authors in particular. So those are the books that I have hauled in 2020. I'm very excited to read them. If you have any comments on some of the books that I mentioned, please feel free to leave them in the section below. The comment section is your friend. I love hearing from you all. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you've read some good books lately. And until next time, I will be here in the dark reading, I hope. Okay, bye.